All right. Hi, Amber. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to talk to you today.
God, it's a pleasure and an honor. And I have to start the podcast with our go-to question, which is how, Amber, do you keep yourself well?
Oh, you know what? I love this question. I listened to other episodes and I'm like, yes, I love that question.
Oh, you're
Um,
prepared.
I was prepared because I'm like, you know what? It's something on the forefront of my mind every day. Like wellness and balance is really important to me. And so when you ask this question on your podcast, I'm like, that is such an awesome question. So I was thinking about it and I do the mind, body, and soul kind of the trilogy, right? So every morning I wake up and I start with tuning into my body. What does my body need? A lot of times I wake up and I feel like, oh, I should have some water. Like I need to hydrate. So I listen to my body first because as you're waking up and you're feeling things and your body's moving around, and then I go into my mind. So what are my intentions for the day? My mindset, the alignment of that. Oftentimes that might even include journaling, just so that I can kind of release some of the extra clutter or noise that's I'm carrying from maybe days before. And then, of course, spiritually, I'll do a meditation or I'll go outside and spend time in nature. And you got to move your body, right? So you need to, get outside, move your body. And even if it's just stretching, I like to make sure like I'm in tune to what my body needs and releasing that energy. And the big one for me, really, how I stay well, I practice gratitude and I try to really focus on self love, like what I need to kind of keep my vibration high.
Hmm. I love that. I like how you said that, the trilogy, and that's a great way to make sure nothing's being neglected and just taking that beat first thing. I feel like so many of us, like
Mm.
the minute we get up, the minute the alarm goes off, we're checking our phone, having a cortisol spike right away, instantly taking in other energy and not necessarily allowing us that space to see like, okay, what do I need physically and mentally before it's like, okay, get up and go, go, go. That's amazing. I'm going to work on adopting that, checking all those boxes. And when you
Yeah.
meditate, do you do like a silent meditation, guided meditation? What's your go-to?
So I noticed you liked mindful meditations. I actually like the mindful meditation as well. And sometimes it's a lot of walking meditation. I'll do a walking. I like to be outside. I like to hear the birds chirping and the leaves going. Oh, I love that. I love
Well, and two, I think that's a really realistic way to approach wellness is that, some people might listen to this and say, okay, that sounds great, but I'm so busy. I have to get up and go tend to the kids, whatever the case is. When you can
it.
stack some of those wellness habits, like get some movement in, get the nature, get the grounding, and meditate at the same time, it's like, okay, it's a 3-for-1 deal. You can
Yes.
start the day on such a positive foot. I love that. And I'm sure your career is very integrated with both keeping yourself well and encouraging others to keep themselves well as well. So I'd love to know,
Mhm.
how did you find your way to a career path as a psychic medium?
It's kind of a journey, right? Of course, as it would be. But I always knew that as a child, I was connecting in a way that other people weren't. And I just felt like, oh, I just knew that. Like I never really questioned why I would know things or feel things or sense things that other people weren't. And it was a joke in elementary school. It was like Amber psychic, and I would and someone would say to me, "How did you know that?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm psychic." And little did I actually know that that's what it was called. That's what I was doing. And so the journey really started, I guess, at birth, because this is just kind of the intensity of the awareness I was able to have young. I nurtured it, I leaned into it, but I didn't understand the language behind it or what it meant or the weight of responsibility that it brought with along with it. And so when I started having children, so I birthed 4 children, and they're amazing little beings, but I really started to tap more into what it meant to be psychic and what it meant to be a medium and what the difference was between the two, and to really trust it. So you know how when people have children they say, oh, it's mother's intuition. Well, I highly feel like the reason we feel we've got mother's intuition is because a lot of us will start to tap into our psychic abilities or intuition during the time of creation of life. Like we're leaning into our feminine energy while we're creating life. And that feminine energy really taps into your ability to be surrendering to what's going on around you and that heightened awareness. And so, as I had child after child after child, it was this deepened awareness, and it was something where I couldn't avoid it anymore. So it did help a lot in parenting these kids because I knew a lot of what was going to happen or what I needed to talk about before they actually went out into the world. And so that helped. So the journey really started. It was very introspective journey along the way at the beginning. And then I was working in the corporate world and my body revolted it. Every turn, it just revolted it. And I started out with everything leaning in towards the healthcare industry. Really loved palliative care and grief and bereavement, and I felt a really good attraction to that because my dad said, why would you want to do that, because that's really heavy. And I said, well, I feel like a lot of people want to be around when people are coming into the world, but not a lot of people know what to do when people are leaving the world. And I felt comfortable enough, I don't know why, but to explore that. And so that kind of led me into this profound knowledge that I was an empath. And so while I was working with these individuals, I was feeling and picking up and kind of owning, as a healer, as an empath, what they were going through. And it was heavy. And my father was right. That was a lot for me to kind of, younger, understand how to balance that. And so it very quickly became into management and operations and kind of went and spiraled into more of the corporate side of it. And eventually I decided human resources. I loved like working with people and understanding their career path and all of that stuff. It all kind of tied in, right? Like death, dying, living, purpose, where you're heading and your goals. And as I was experiencing going to work every day, like I said, my body revolted it because it was just out of this world. Like everything felt like a contraction. Was getting headaches and dizzy. My body just did not want to go. Like it was just, I woke up miserable. I don't want to go and do this thing today. Like, why do I have to do this? And you've got society and your family saying, well, everybody needs a job. You need to have this job. Like you've got a great career, you've got salary and benefits and all this great stuff. So you start like thinking, okay, something is wrong with me because I don't want to do this. This doesn't feel good. But eventually I did. I got really sick and my body just in all the different ways. I thought I was having a stroke, actually. That's what it felt like. And I went to the doctor. Of course, I had to take time off. And during that time off, I really started to ask the universe for guidance. Like, what is happening in my body? What can I do to fix it? Because nobody wants to feel unwell. And I hated the fact that my body was turning against me. Like, I had no control over the wellness and balance of my body in that moment. So I really did go on this like wellness journey to figure out how can I get myself better, because I knew that it was what I was doing in my life, not necessarily what my body was doing. And you know what? This was beautiful because one day I heard in a meditation, you need to do your work that you're here to do as a psychic medium professionally. You need to cut out whatever you've been trying to do, stop avoiding this. And that day, I still get chills thinking about it. That day, I had 4 separate phone calls, one from my dad, one from a coworker, and 2 friends. None of them are related, like none of them talk and hang out or whatever. And all 4 of them said, Amber, I really think you need to stop doing this job and work in what you're meant to be doing, which is the psychic medium. Like,
Wow.
I nearly fell out of my chair by the second person, let alone the 4th person. Now I'm like, okay, you all talked. You all got together and did this intervention with me, right?
Yeah,
But
like, is
it
there a
wasn't.
group
It was,
chat I don't know about?
yeah,
Wow.
beautiful. So I did. I quit my job and I started doing this, and away I went. And it's been, 13, 14 years of actual, like, hardcore into it.
Wow, that's incredible. And so your dad was one of the people
Yeah.
encouraging you to lean into this. So have your parents always been aware that you had this
Yeah.
special skill?
It's so funny because I thought my dad was the one who always knew, but he was the most shocked when he found himself calling me that day. And he's always shocked. My mom and dad come to all of my events. Very supportive of me. I know I can see their face in the back of the room, and they're just blown away every time it happens. And my mom, I think because my mom is psychic, although she won't call herself that, like she just has really good insight. And then her mother, and now knowing what an empath is and how that's a psychic ability, my dad and his mom, and it just runs in the family. And of course, having these kids now, they're all in one way, shape, or form this psychic being doing it on their own way. But again, everyone's kind of still not sure how to label themselves or if they even want to. Yeah.
Well, like you said, there's a weight of responsibility,
Mhm.
saying that this is the skill that you have, and putting a label to it, I'm sure kind of heightens
Mhm.
the weight of that
Yeah.
responsibility. Oh, that's incredible. So your kids, are they leaning into that? Are you helping them foster it and nourish it?
I do the best that I can when they're willing to communicate about it. It was easier when they were younger because there was more awareness around it. As they got older, just like with all of us, we get to understand, the belief systems and mindsets and things like that. And you just kind of want to fit in and not rock the boat. And so you kind of can shut it out to an extent. But every chance I get, I will encourage them to say, listen, you knew that was going to happen. Or why didn't you trust your intuition with this? You knew, you told me, and you did it anyway. And look what happened. And so, um, I try not to press them because I really want them to be able to fall into it organically and feel like, again, aging, like the age and the time frame is really important too. Like I said, I was in my 20s and it was when I was having children. And now my two oldest kids, one is a girl and one is a boy, and they both are having their own children now. And they are now understanding what it means to be more in tune, and they're using that for their parenting.
Wow, that's a good, like, keep your kids accountable and honest when you can say,
Yes.
I know.
Yes.
So what does this career path actually look like? I'm sure there's so many misconceptions when someone asks, "Oh, what do you do for a living?" And this is
Mhm.
the response. So how do you describe what you do?
Well, I describe it as helping primarily women. Like this is who my clientele base is women. I help women understand themselves on a deeper level by using and accessing their intuition. And that may be through a reading where you come in and you have a psychic medium reading, and that leads them to, okay, this is how I'm feeling, this is what I'm doing. Now I need to know, how did you do it, how do you understand it, how do I fix this, and how do I work with it. That evolved me from doing readings primarily to offering clarity coaching. And I often, questioned the universe and like, how did I go from, finally leaning in and accepting my psychic medium abilities to all of a sudden now I'm doing coaching to help women really access this and gain some empowerment there. And their answer is always, this is the next logical thing that you need to do. Because really, when you're accessing psychic medium information, it's less about validation and like, oh, that's cool. It's more about like, here, we learned our lessons while we were living, and now we've had to understand them from a heightened awareness. We don't want you to like either do the same thing or, hey, watch out for this. So there was a lot of life lessons that come through during these medium readings. And that's when I started to figure out like, ooh, we don't want people to have to use a medium. We want people to live their life as though they will never have to use a medium. And so that's why the clarity coaching came into effect, was I want them to get there.
So you use the word intuition. How do you define intuition? Because I'm almost picking up it's like a spectrum and something that you can maybe hone in and foster. And I mean, my personal opinion is that we maybe dampen women's ability to lean into their intuition with certain lifestyle components. And even like you said, your career, like a very corporate career, and then all the way up to have the intuition to be a psychic medium. So what is intuition for someone who doesn't even think that they're tapping into
Mhm.
that at all at this point?
You're right. It is a spectrum because intuition to me is that ability to think for a second, oh, I have an idea and I think this is what I should do. I have a gut feeling. I should get up and go shut the door right now. I should, like, it's a pressing, overwhelming thing that someone feels like, and you might, if you're not sure really what intuition is and you're trying to kind of quantify what it means based on what I just said, imagine getting in your car and thinking, well, I usually take this route to work every day. But for some reason, something is telling me I should go this way today. And you do, you follow that and you go the opposite way. And you find out later, oh, I missed construction or there was an accident, or thank goodness I didn't go that way. The road was closed. And so it's that verification of that your thought or your gut feeling or something that compelled you to do something was validated by, thank goodness I didn't do it because, or I knew that was going to happen. A lot of times you might hear the phone ring and think, oh, that's mom. And then you look down and of course it's your mom calling, or you know, just little things like that. That would be intuition. Psychic abilities are a little bit more in depth. It's when you want to actually intentionally connect to the different levels of consciousness to intentionally get information that is going to validate your current experience or give you some insight into what's happening in the future. So intuition can help guide you in the actual moment, and psychic ability would say, okay, now and future. Mediumship is really based on connecting to a soul, so a living person that has passed away and now is in spirit, that is connecting to give you a message. And so those are kind of, you know, the
Okay.
ideas of what each of those are.
So I know you said that, this runs in your family. Do you think that everybody has this ability to hone into intuition and heighten it by like consistently being guided and tapping in, or some people just innately have this skill and some people don't?
So I do believe people can tap into it and grow it. It is all about your willingness to do your own work. And that's the scary part. So, in order to really access your intuition or your abilities, psychic, healer, mediumship, whatever, you have to be able to be vulnerable enough to go inside and do the work and understand who you are as an individual. So, for instance, if I'm unwilling to understand that every time I see a certain experience or sign or memory that it means or feels this to me, then I'm not going to be able to interpret someone's message in that way. It's going to be lost on me. If I understand that every time I see a red cardinal, let's use this because this is probably one of the most widely thing, like a red cardinal might show you that someone you love is near in spirit. So if I don't believe that, and I've always grown up that cardinals mean, you know, you're about to get a financial windfall, then when I see a cardinal, I know money is going to be following. Whereas other people might widely know if I see a cardinal, then my loved one is near. So you really have to understand what you are and what things mean to you. So if you're not willing to kind of go through what are your limiting beliefs, what are some of the obstacles or challenges that you're facing, are you open-minded to it? And that's how come this clarity coaching really kind of kicked off, is because people were saying, well, how do I do this? Or how can I enhance it? Because I want to know how to do it. And it really became my style was, okay, let's do the stuff with you first. Let's get to know who you are. That's the self-love and the awareness and the going within and understanding what your mindsets and belief systems are so that you can interpret the messages you're receiving from the universe and actually apply them to help yourself or other people. So that's really the key, I believe, and that's where I go in terms of my coaching. But I do believe everybody can do it. You just have to be willing to do that kind of work to get there.
Well, and be open to recognizing some of these signs or feelings by the sounds of it, because you mentioned, like a gut feeling. And
Mm.
a lot of people, because you can't maybe rationalize it, just stuff it, and then you're not, continuing to hone into that. Are there any more examples of us, kind of being more tapped in than we realize, like a gut feeling or a sign, or, see lots of like angel numbers, and, are there
Yeah.
other examples of like little signs of intuition that we might see and may not be picking up on?
Absolutely. So the ones that we are more willing to accept are the ones we can see, right? We almost have to see it with our own eyes to believe it. So
Get to it.
feathers and finding dimes and the cardinals or blue jays or eagles or hawks or owls or whatever. A lot of birds really do reference our spiritual connections, right? Now, those are the things we need to see. And we believe them because we can see them, right? But sometimes you might hear your name being called and you think, oh, did you hear that too? Where did that come from? And then, or this happened to me years ago, was I kept hearing music coming from the lowest part of my house, like looking everywhere, like, is there a music box in a container down here? Like, what's going on? Well, I had no idea, but my husband had brought a box of old CDs and he stored it away. It belonged to someone who had passed away. And I kept hearing music I wasn't really aware of because I didn't listen to that type of music. Well, when we finally were moving and unpacking, going through and repacking stuff, we saw all this and he says, oh my goodness, I forgot I even had this. And I said, these are the songs that I was hearing. Like, I was hearing this. So of course it was her soul that was trying to get me to this box to be aware that I needed to go in there and look at it. And of course, when he looked at it, there were things in there he was looking for. So it was, okay, we already talked about him looking for it. I'm hearing the stuff to get him to that spot. And now he's found them. So hearing, like, it's called clairaudience. So where you hear a message. The other thing is music. You might be driving along and hear a song and you're like, oh, that song has not been on in years. It's not an average song. That's all the time. Yet every time I think of this, I think of you. And that song, if you listen to the lyrics, it's the message from your loved one, or it's the message you needed to hear today. And so you've got all of these things that are kind of coming at you at all times. And that's why gratitude is really important in the development of being able to actually receive these messages, is because the more you accept them and the more you show gratitude for receiving them, the more they're going to give you. Like, there's not one thing that doesn't happen on any given day that I'm like, okay, yes, thank you. Yes, thank you. Yes, thank you. Because they're always working with me. It's just, am I gonna listen? Like, am I lazy? Do I not want to get up and shut the door right now? And I ignore it, and then someone breaks into my car and takes my wallet or whatever that I forgot to get. It's really about trusting it and acting it in the moment. So I will tell you some of the signs that we do get that you were asking, like, for more examples of. You have to acknowledge them in that moment because energy is so like, it moves very quickly. So if they're giving you this sign and you don't do anything with it right now, then that momentum is now gone. You've missed the message and you can't hold on to it, go back to it. It's constant and ever flowing. And so, it could be, for instance, a good example of a sign that's ever flowing and changing quickly is in the clouds. A lot of people might see faces in the clouds or hearts, or their signs from their loved ones. But in a second, you know how quick a cloud can change. It's like, oh, I missed it, or I did. So it really is also a feeling. So when we did talk about the gut feeling, because I'm so in tune with my body, I feel things. So when I first started connecting with spirit, the back of my thighs would tingle and my lips would tingle, and I would think, oh my goodness, I'm having like an allergic reaction, something is going wrong. And then I realized, okay, every time that happened, then a spiritual thing happened right away. So I started to really tune into my body. Was my heart racing? Was my skin getting chills? Like, all of those things, because you can also get the awareness that you're getting signs through how they make you feel. So what I'll say is, you're either going to hear them, see them, feel them, smell them, taste them. Those are the ways that they would usually show us that they're trying to connect. But it's up to you to decide how you actually want to communicate. If you're someone who likes to be connected to your body, you may feel like a hand on your shoulder or someone touching your head, or the chills. If you're someone who needs to hear it, you might hear your name being called or a song on the radio. If you really just need to be knocked over the head with it, you might have to see it. It might be something. But you can learn to work with all of those things and evolve with them.
Well, and it sounds like, okay, if maybe the, path of least resistance for people is seeing it because it's more tangible. If you start opening up your willingness to see those things and acknowledge them, maybe then it builds and you kind of open up the rest of the senses to acknowledge the feelings and the sounds and,
Mhm.
lean into that. So that said, then, do you believe there's such thing as coincidence? Or, if something coincidental happens, is it likely to be a sign or a message?
Mhm. Love that question because I literally don't believe in coincidence. I feel that every single thing that happens is a result of this, interconnected thing that's going on. I feel like the people we meet or the experiences that we have are all meant for something. And we may not know why in that moment. We may have to keep this for later to understand, well, why did I meet that person? Or why did they say that thing to me in this moment? Like you might be thinking like, okay, that was weird. I was just thinking of that and now I'm standing in line at the bank and someone is telling me something that I just was thinking about 10 minutes ago and wanted to have an answer for. So they will use other people and experiences to come into our path at the right time, at the right place that we don't understand logically to deconstruct why, when, where, how, and who. But eventually it all works out. So I don't believe in coincidence so much as I believe in divine timing.
Oh, I love that. I think too, journaling is such a powerful component of this because if you are someone who journals about your day, you might note, oh, this was an interesting thing that happened. And then like weeks or months or years later, you come back to it. So personal example of this, where like the divine timing. So I'm currently in Nicaragua and when I first came here September and I was like, I'm going to journal every day. And that lasted for like maybe 5 days.
Yeah.
And then the few pages that I had from that journal, I pulled out and brought with me and stuffed into another journal. And I read them the other day. And the last day that I journaled, I was like, oh, I met this new friend, Marilyn. She's a yoga teacher. She recommended that like I should teach or I should take some surf lessons. And so she put me in contact with her friend, David, and he's a local surf instructor, speaks English. Well, now we're dating. And I'm like,
I love it.
and it's just, I think it's like, it adds a lot of like fun and whimsy to life as well when you're like
Yes.
looking for this magic. And I don't know if you're like big on TikTok and Instagram, but like a really trending topic right now is this invisible string theory. Have you heard about this?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, I just got chills. And I think that when you like lean into those, I'm like, how can we ignore that these things are, happening? And it can't be coincidence because the chances of, these like, whether it's a romantic relationship or a friendship or whatever the case is, it's like, these people who have somehow like been on the fringe in your life and then end up being like a major player somehow. I mean, there's just when there's billions of people in the world, how could it possibly be?
Right? Yeah.
Coincidence. So I you talk a lot of you take women on like a spiritual education journey as well, you would say. And how do you define spirituality? I feel like many of us are curious about that. We don't know what it means. We maybe view it as meditation or we view it as a religion. So how do you kind of broach spirituality with women?
I honestly don't break it down that far. I feel like we're so unique as individuals that even though we share a lot of the same gaps or obstacles, we are so individualized that I feel spirituality is going to be different from one woman to the next. But ultimately, how I describe it to take someone along in a spiritual journey is to first and foremost understand we're in a human experience. We can't deny that we are human. I mean, we have to accept that there are things that are going to happen to us, that have to happen to us, or for us rather, that are going to help us, even though they feel like they're hindering in this moment. And because of that, we can't ignore it, meaning there's nothing about spirituality that's going to be rainbows and butterflies. As a matter of fact, it's complete opposite. Spirituality is more of seeing yourself as a soul in this human experience that's navigating around other humans, whether it's different cultures or genders or countries or whatever that kind of define us into smaller groups that resonate with each other. We have to understand that spirituality is a journey that helps our soul learn the lessons through the human experience with one another, but ultimately only for ourselves so that we can continue to grow. And I can grow regardless of if my partner is doing this growth. I do not have to be dependent on my peace and happiness is dependent on whether he's conditionally giving me peace and happiness. And that's really the hardest part in spirituality is to understand you don't have to have an attachment to someone else's human experience in order for you to continue your evolution of your own spiritual journey. And so it really just boils down to when you want to go through this spiritual experience, are you ready to kind of peel back all those layers, go deep within yourself, and then see what transformative experiences you want to do? Because everyone else will follow you. I don't care if my husband is willing to do something or not do something. If I'm willing to shift my mindset and decide if this is what I desire, he'll follow because I've gone first. So it's how I describe spirituality.
Oh, I love that. When you're like, okay, lucky him, you'll do the work and he
That's right. Eventually, he'll do his. We don't have to do it at the same time. But if
well,
I'm waiting for someone else to do something, then keep waiting because it's
yeah.
not going to work.
Well, okay, and I want to come back to, so you say mother's intuition, and very rarely, I think, if ever, do we hear father's intuition. Do you believe women just inherently are more naturally intuitive? It's more likely for a woman to, have this skill and be able to foster it?
I believe both genders, or any gender, is able to do it. However, I believe that women were more conditioned to believe that they could, and men were conditioned to believe they shouldn't.
Oh, that's very interesting.
So yeah, I mean it's similar to, let's say, even parenting in general. Mothers were conditioned to be the ones that, maybe were the homemaker and doing all these things that dealt with loving and kindness and gentleness and nurturing, where men were kind of like, well, you have to go out and earn the money, you're responsible for finances and security and safety, and you have to be strong and tough and don't cry and don't show emotion.
Mm.
And if you're lucky enough, then you'll have a strong individual in the family that will break those generational beliefs or the societal beliefs that will say it's okay for you to nurture your feminine side, whether you're male or female, as well as nurture your masculine side. I mean, we as women are very inherently told we need to be in our masculine as well. We need to be tough, we need to keep going, we need to be strong, and also, you know, go to work, raise the children, please your partner, deal with finances, learn all the things, but yet still do it in the same amount of time a day that you had before.
Oh
so
yeah, I've
so
brought
it
this
could
up
go either way.
many times on the podcast. I've mentioned how we are working 9 to 5s or more, plus also doing all of the other
Yeah.
things we were expected when we didn't have 9 to 5. So that's so interesting.
Yes.
I really love, and I'm just noticing a bias that I had, in thinking that women were more intuitive, because when you say it like that, we all embody masculine and feminine energy. And so this kind of more empathic energy is maybe just more on the feminine side. So men, of course, are not generally being recommended to lean into that and hone into it. But even women now, especially these days, I would say, because we are having to be so intermasculine all of the time. Do you think that historically, as women have moved even more into what we would maybe consider like traditional masculine roles, like working in corporate and, being the breadwinners as well, do you think that has kind of shifted societally our women in being less intuitive because we're just not allowing the time and space to be empathic?
Yes, absolutely. I truly believe that because I feel as though we just don't have time. We mentioned before when we were talking about how can we do a walking meditation, which is, two birds, one stone, because we just don't have time. And that's actually that area of expertise that I hone in for women is how do you actually embrace your spirituality, develop your intuition, and still manage everything else that you've got going on, because you shouldn't have to choose between one or the other. You should be able to be that full self. You should be able to be, I'm so happy because I'm a corporate exec and I'm also raising kids, or not. Like, you don't have to have kids just because you're a human. Or, leaning into fitness and health and all the things, or wanting to travel. Like, you can have it all if that's what you so desire, but you have to be willing to look for balance. And I think it's just we are so unbalanced about our time, and we get into, overeating, or, at the end of the day getting so exhausted we just slump on the couch, or we overspend, or we indulge in all of these things that kind of like allow us to actually push that even further down. So it is true. There is such a demand for people to keep going, going, going. And we're living in this world that everything has to be so instant and hurry up and go faster, that we're not actually being able to nurture it. And that's primarily the women I work with, is how can you do all of it and still nurture it?
So, and I mean, yes, because I think when we talk about this, you almost, well, I'll speak personally. I have this vision of you're like in nature or in a forest and like very disconnected to be able to, have the space and
Mm.
time to foster these skills. So actually figuring out how in the kind of normal day-to-day world with all of these other roles, responsibilities, how do we do that when just everything, feels like it's at full volume all of the time. So do you have any kind of tangible skills or tools or advice you can give? Like how do we stay connected to the universe, connected to intuition while we are still fulfilling these demands that we have as, I don't even say as women, like as humans?
Yes. So the first and foremost thing is that what I want? Do I want to navigate through my day where I am connecting to all things, that I am feeling empowered to know that I trust myself enough to hold space for all of it? Is that my intention? Because if it's my intention, then I'm going to be able to like keep focusing on. It's like when you have a goal, you're like, okay, my goal is to be in tuned and to trust my intuition today, and also to do my other stuff. Well, I'm going to remember that all day, that that was my goal. Where if I just wake up and hit the ground running, I'm not actually aligning to anything. And it's probably going to be chaos. You don't have a meal plan for the day. You don't have your hydration, your snacks. You don't have time to set aside to like connect to nature. You're just probably in survival mode, right? So, first and foremost, setting this intention is really important. It will literally take you 1 second every morning to just wake up and be like, okay, today is the day I'm creating because I want this. Then, um, I like to listen to, so part of my actual spiritual journey is learning. I love to learn. And because I'm so analytical, I like to continue to learn. Well, part of that self-care thing for me and developing my intuition was, how can I do that when I get home I've got all these other things to be doing. So incorporating while I'm going for a walk, listening to it, or as I'm driving from one thing to the next, I'll listen to a podcast or an ebook or something. So, kind of instead of just putting on the radio and allowing the commercials to play and be mindless and disconnected, or actually turning everything off and being mindful. How many trees am I looking at? Opening the window. Can I hear anything? On my lunch hour, can I go sit outside and eat my lunch instead of sitting at my desk and eating? Like allowing yourself to really feel the feels. We sometimes even put sexuality on the back burner, and we forget that sexuality is a really huge component of spirituality. And when you really dive into sexuality that way, especially for women, it becomes a very spiritual experience, and you're able to connect to your body in a way that allows you to have this heightened awareness. And you're usually so connected to like a different level of consciousness that you're able to have insights in those moments. And I know that sounds really crazy, but if you do honor your sexuality in that time and be able to like tune in, you're actually getting heightened awareness. So, I mean, again, two things at one time. So that's always good. But just being able to, I guess, you have to want to do it is the biggest thing. But there's so many different tips and techniques. Like, for example, if you are a parent and you've got these children and you're losing your patience because now you're out of alignment, you're out of alignment because he's not on time and he's not getting ready and she's not doing this, and you're starting to lose your patience. This is the perfect time to start to actually, okay, I'm going to ground myself, maybe take off my socks and shoes. I'm going to have my feet touch the ground. I'm going to take a deep breath, because breathing is huge. If you can take a deep breath in and release that, you can reset your energy pretty darn quickly. Being mindful of your words, how every word you say has energy attached to that. And teaching your kids at the same time. You can't stop at you also have to teach your children and maybe your partner on how you can use this as an opportunity for mindfulness, for patience, for empathy, for compassion, and use it as a learning experience. So again, two things one time, but I mean, I could go on forever and ever, but I think it's just kind of, if you understand this is the life you want to align to, then all of a sudden everything you're doing has to be intentional. And if you are a woman in your power, you are doing everything with intention.
Well, I think that's great advice. And, coming back to one of the very first things that you said, just taking that beat to start with being intuitive of what do I need right now, mentally and physically, that alone, I feel like can just snowball, right? You
Yes.
have to just start with that basic. And I was looking at one of your YouTube videos about embracing sensitivity. And I know you were talking about groundedness versus avoidance. And
Yeah.
I would love for you to tell me more about that.
Absolutely. This was one of those moments where it was just like this aha moment where, I'm thinking of why are people avoiding? And yet it's not the same thing as being grounded. And so again, it kind of goes back to what is the idea of spirituality in the first place? Do I need to shut everybody out and avoid you? Or do I learn how to make empowered choices, hold space for what I want, and also stay grounded in this moment? So the idea behind that message was we don't have to put ourselves in this meditation room, shut everybody out, block off 5 hours, and do this every single day and disconnect from our human experience. We can hold space for all of it, but be grounded and intentional with the empowered choices and boundaries that we're setting. So, as an example specifically, let's use the thing I used before. So if my peace and happiness is hinging on my husband's mood, oh, I'm set up for disaster, really, because you never know what that person's going to be feeling, if they had a good day, a bad day, if there's anything off. And as a really intuitive person, you will connect to your loved ones and be like, wait, something's off. What is that? What's going on? And you're making me feel uncomfortable. So now I'm ungrounded. So what happens is we tend to want to avoid that situation. We want to avoid it. So we'll keep ourselves busy instead of leaning in and saying, okay, I'm going to ground for this because it's all right that everybody else around me is dealing with their emotions because they're human, they have emotions, and that doesn't have to change how I feel in my body. So it's really learning how to remain balanced and grounded in your own experience because you have to learn to be the observer. If
Mhm.
you can be an observer, then you're just watching, you're not owning, you're not carrying. And it's okay to still show like a teachable moment. Like, for instance, if your husband asks for advice on how to deal with his bad day, well, you're not going to say, too bad, so sad. I'm an observer and you've got to deal with this on your own. You're going to say, okay, well, maybe empathize with the situation or show compassion for their mood in the moment and just say, here's what I'm thinking. And I don't know if it lands with you or not. Take what you want, leave the rest, and give them that moment to feel like they're being seen and heard. Or saying, listen, right now is not a good time for me to do this. Can we catch up again in 15 minutes? I just have to do this, this, and this, and I'll come back to it. So making sure your needs are met at the same time as you're not avoiding others and trying to avoid people altogether.
And how powerful, not only for you, kind of protecting your own energy, saying, like, I do not accept this mood or energy as my own, but also makes you such an incredible partner where you can stay level for someone else and just allow them to experience that
Yeah.
fluctuation in emotion, right? I think so much of escalation comes when someone's going through it, maybe not doing a great job regulating. I will use myself as not always great at regulating. And my partner, so calm, cool, collected all the time, and not that it's his responsibility, but it allows me to move through those fluctuations
Yes.
so quickly because I'm like, I don't wanna bring that down, like, he's such a little bundle of joy, and 2, it also allows me to be like, "Okay, why am I not just, able to bring that back?" Whereas if he was, upset because I'm upset or taking that on, "Well, why are you mad?" We're, like, having this beautiful, I mean, it would only make things so much worse. So what a powerful
Yes.
thing, like within a partnership or friends, family, whatever, a workspace even, to
Mhm.
just move through it. And I know you mentioned breathing. Is like self-talk, affirmations, is that part of your practice and encouragement for clients as well?
Absolutely. And again, it goes back to who am I working with? I have clients that are from a variety of different industries, from healthcare to film and television. And so sometimes it's not always in their schedule, or like as you're face to face with someone doing something, you might not be able to take time out to do this. So I'm teaching them how to use timing as well as different strategies. For instance, if you are in a corporate world and you're in a board meeting and someone is just doing something that's irritating you, or you're getting upset, or like you're like, oh my gosh, how long is this meeting going to be, because I have like all these things to do at my desk and work's piling up. Nobody might notice that you've taken your shoes off and now your feet are touching the ground underneath the table, or they might not notice you taking a deep breath. But I can tell you that, how many times have you noticed that if somebody takes a deep breath, that the other person attacks them for sighing?
Oh,
Like, we're
oh,
self-regulating and now we're in trouble for taking a deep breath.
like, oh, are you bored right now?
Yeah. Yeah.
So funny. I mean, I am very privileged. Well, some people might not view this as privilege. I think it's a privilege. I've worked solely by myself for a decade, so no one's here to hear if I sigh. But that's such a great, yeah. Like
Yeah.
even observing media, someone like does a deep breath in the boardroom. Like, oh, are you? Am I
Yeah.
losing?
That's right, because we are so conditioned to make everybody else comfortable so that when something happens and you're doing something that's helping you regulate, all of a sudden someone's like, ooh, I'm going to use this as an opportunity. And then it does escalate. It does become a very defensive exchange, or causing you guys to be further away energetically. So if you think of kindergartners, the teachers are always like, sit still, crisscross applesauce, don't move, stop fidgeting, don't do this, don't do that. Well, you're learning from a very young age that you are not able to move energy through your body. Now, you mentioned that sometimes, like, to regulate your emotions. My husband's a very emotional man. And I know this of him, that if he is going to feel things, he feels things so intensely. And I thought for a long time that was about me. Like if I said, oh, something came out of our bank account twice, and then all of a sudden he was like, getting all worked up, I would be, oh my gosh, I can't tell him that that happened next time, because he's going to think I got to deal with this now. And that was so far from feeling a connection with someone, because I was trying to control how he was going to respond. And I was making it about me, when all I've learned about him is that there are some people that are more emotional. Some people like myself are more introverted. Like I have to work through it in my own mind, where he's more like, I need you to talk about this with me. I need to feel this. But those are also the things that I love about them. So if you think about it, you might be somebody who's more emotional, and that's a great thing to lean into. And that's why your partner is who they are, because now all of a sudden we're matched up with the proper person
I was
who's going to be
just
able to
saying, I'm like
complement us.
balance. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, that's amazing. Well, and it's funny because if I see someone do a deep breath in, I do it too. I'm like, oh, now
Right.
I'm like
Yeah.
co-regulating. So, I mean, I wonder if I use breath all the time, and I mention it to my clients, actually sitting in, because I do a lot of nutrition and mindfulness. Like you said, sometimes if we're not mindful, we end up overeating because we're like stuffing
Yeah.
everything else down. Breath work is one of the things I recommend all the time. So I'm like, you can do it without anyone noticing. Maybe you're not
That's
doing
right.
the nostril breathing or like big lion's
Yeah.
breath, be a bit dramatic, but you can do like the two in, like little subtle breath, or just that deep breath, or just being mindful of your own breath for a minute does so
Mhm.
much just to, bring that regulation down. And um, something I think that I've seen you talk about working with clients is authenticity as well.
Mhm.
So how does authenticity play into this? Because it does seem like there's a really authentic experience, even in how you're approaching someone finding their own intuition, or how much they even want to become aware. And that has to be a very personalized, authentic
Yeah.
experience.
Absolutely. First and foremost, for I'm going to do it from two perspectives. So from my perspective, I have to authentically be able to um, resonate or connect with the energy of the people that I'm connecting to, so that it is an authentic connection. Do we fit together? Do we work together? Is this going to be a good, productive exchange of of two people working together. So for me, authentically, I have to be able to vibrate in this frequency with you that's going to feel good. Otherwise, I'm coming into it with resentment or withholding or a lower vibrational frequency. And I don't like any of that. Like I can't deal with any of that. So it feels gross to me to feel like I'm doing something different than I want to be doing. So for me, I've always set that is my guiding light in anything. Like I might say things that are coming out very nicely, but they're very honest, to my children or my husband or my friends. And, they think like, how can you say something that's supposed to sound so horrible, so nice? And I'm like, because I'm coming from love. Like I'm not I'm coming from love. It's not to hurt someone or whatever. So being authentic in your words, we talk about, when you were asking about these affirmations and self-talk and stuff, I mentioned earlier, like energy are words and words are energy. And you got to be intentional with what you're saying to people, but also to yourself.
Mm.
And so that authentic relationship has to start with you. When I'm working with people in my practice and we're looking at if they believe they're living authentically versus are they actually living authentically becomes the question. Because by the end of this exploration together, we recognize that the reason that they're in such resistance is because they're not living in authenticity. And that doesn't mean that someone is fake. I just want to clarify that, because I feel like if people say you're not being authentic, it's either they feel like someone is saying that you're lying or you're not being truthful or you're fake. And that's not necessarily what it is in my world. In my world, it is we become so lost with all of the noise, like the belief systems and the mindsets and all the things that are kind of shaping us, that we get so lost in who we should be. And you should be happy being who you are. What's wrong with you? And that's what we're told. Versus, I didn't want to. Like, I always think of the person who wanted to be the artist, and the parents are like, you're never going to earn any money being an artist. What are you doing? Yet now there's some engineer who hates their life, who's upset about everything, who's blown up their marriage, who's completely addicted to drugs or alcohol, whatever this situation is, because they just aren't in alignment with what they want to be doing. And if we go back to what that looks like, the authenticity of that is you need to get back into art. You need to create. You need to start there. Does it mean you leave your job and immediately and become an artist? Maybe not. Maybe we're taking little steps, but it's important to really just quiet that noise so that you can live authentically. And that really does require a lot of courage, because people are afraid to not be accepted and not be loved and to be pushed aside if they're not making the decisions other people believe that they should.
Mm. Well, and just as you experienced with this resistance that your whole body was giving you, I think so often, because we're not taking time to be grounded, to feel our body, to feel our emotions. We just go, 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 so many people are likely experiencing, lack of alignment, and just we're told too, I think societally, like you said, you go to the office, you do the work, you do everything, but actually giving yourself that allowance. So part of what you do is give people permission to assess that alignment, and if they really are being authentic, which what a beautiful gift to hold that space for someone. And
Thank you.
doing so, I can imagine, has a really big impact on someone's mental health. So is that something that you see as a byproduct of what you're doing with coaching, really shifts in someone's mental and emotional space?
Absolutely. I feel like, I've had people tell me, they're like, I've worked with a counselor for 10 years and I've had one session with you, and all of a sudden everything's kind of open up. And I'm like, yes, but that does not replace this, because I am not a counselor. But there is this different approach, right? You're looking at something from not what someone else is helping you see about yourself, but that you're seeing something about yourself. And when you have that, it's that moment where you're like, yes, that clicks, that makes sense. And so the mental health comes from a couple of different vantage points. Is one, yes, you're able to see this for yourself, understand it, and now it becomes proof to you. And now you're like, oh, I don't like that. It doesn't feel good and I don't want to be there anymore. And then the other side is I'm looking at this from I didn't feel in alignment. So it's causing me to feel anxiety. It's causing me to feel depressed. It's causing me to feel all these things that I'm either medicating for or having to explore as a mental health thing. Now, there is actual mental health issues that do require those things. But if I'm talking about that feeling of depression because I'm not in alignment, or anxiety because I have to go to work and I hate this job, now all of a sudden it becomes gone when you realize you're in alignment and you're not actually having to force yourself to do it.
It almost sounds like to me you're holding up a mirror for people to kind of come to those realizations on their own. And part of that, just creating space and time and dedicated energy for someone to do that in a coaching practice, which is such a beautiful thing, let alone the psychic medium component, which is
Mhm.
obviously just enhancing that. So something that you noticed that, or sorry, something that you said that I noticed that stood out to me is, kind of making sure that you're working with the right people and it's a good fit for you. So I just imagine boundaries being such a big component of what you do, not only with, working with clients who it's a good fit. So, one, do you ever turn away a client saying, I don't think this is going to be a good fit? And then two, once you are working with clients, how do you kind of maintain boundaries with all of that? Because just as you said, when you're working with, death and grieving, you're so empathic. How do you create those spaces for yourself?
Yes, I have turned away a client before, well, clients before, because the goals of what they're trying to achieve aren't in alignment with what I'm able to help them with. Um, some of the language is, I am not happy because this person is doing that. This is this person's fault. This is that. I don't need the work. I need you to help me to help them. And so
Oh,
there's different things like that that I feel like, okay, that's out of alignment with what you're going to achieve. So I would suggest maybe try this person or try that, or something that might, or sorry, I just am not able to be the right person for you. And I'm okay with that, because I feel like I'd rather have meaningful connections of people who are really wanting to take this journey, versus saying, wait a minute, I signed up for this and this is what I thought you were going to do. And this is not what you're going to do. And it would just be like constant, butting heads the whole time, trying to get someone to see something you're not seeing. So yes, I have done that in the past. And for the clients that I currently have, or that I have at any given time, it can be tricky because I do connect to their energy, and you learn to connect with them over time. And so there are some times where I have to actually physically, intentionally disconnect from their energy. So just energetically, so that I'm not always tuned into them, is the first thing. And also to give them the strategies and tools to empower themselves to first go through what can they do to get to what they're trying to get to, instead of running to me and saying, just give me the answer. Because I'm not going to give you the answer, because you're not going to resonate with it. Like, it's going to be like, well, okay, well, that's not really what I was thinking, and blah, 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 blah. Where if I say to you, okay, well, if you're not wanting to go to your family's house for dinner, as an example, have you told them that you don't really want to be going? Have we started there first? What are the tools that you can, like, have you identified what you want your intention to be? What do you want to create? Who do you want to be around? What do you want to share? And if you've done those fundamental things, do you still need to be asking me this question? And then usually they're like, okay, actually, no, didn't do any of those things. I'll be right back. And then
good.
but giving them the tools themselves to do it. So that helps. And then, I've been really blessed with the clients that are attracted to the work that I'm doing, because they do want to do that work, which means they're not relying on me a lot and they're not overstepping any boundaries.
Right. I was just thinking that I could imagine some people who aren't ready to do the work almost want you to show up and just be a fortune teller and like,
Yes.
tell me exactly what's going to happen, tell me exactly what to do. And well, this is brings to mind something for me. I have maybe like a preconceived notion about the mediumship side, where I've talked to many mediums, and I have shared this on the podcast before. I strangely like can connect mediums into my life on a regular basis, which is, I think, is interesting and probably meaningful in some way. But I've
Mhm.
never seen one for a reading, because I have this idea of like the butterfly effect. If I learn something, and you can please feel free to correct or give your input onto this, if I learn something about what might happen in the future, I'm then going to shift the, chain of
Yeah.
events based on this like butterfly effect. but I'm sure that's
Absolutely.
not the case based on what you obviously do.
No, though, honestly, I do believe that too. And in my practice, I do say that to people like, A, I'm not giving you any negative information. It's not going to come through me. So you're not going to find out if you're going to die or what the lottery numbers are or whatever those things are. So don't come with that expectation. But I do believe that there have been times where psychics have told people something and they have, okay, for example, who's my soulmate? Well, it's somebody named Steve. Okay, well, now I'm not going to talk to anybody else except for the person named Steve because they aren't the one because the psychic told me it's Steve.
Right. Well, okay. And so that begs the question, are there rules of operation to this industry? Because I can imagine, well, and I know I've heard it, like this could be very dangerous. You could take advantage of people. Like people could really have, that's an example of like what a negative
Mhm.
experience by putting someone in that box. Are there, is it just unspoken rules or are there written rules to like operating as a psychic medium?
So this is probably unwritten, but I'm in the process of trying to write these things because I'm really about ethical mediumship, ethical psychic practice, ethical coaching,
There's a
right?
term for it,
So
right? Yes, that makes sense.
so important. And I recently partnered with two other women, Liz Throp and Jay Lane, and they are also psychic mediums. We created this business called the Psychic Associates, and this is why we did that, was because we wanted to have people understand when you're developing your intuition, your psychic, your medium, whatever, you can't just willy-nilly use language, terminology, certain things like that, or say things. You need to come from a space of how much responsibility that this is to you. So it's funny that you said that because there has not been, it's not like there's a governed body for this to teach you like, hey, here's the right and wrong. But that's what we really wanted to put out into the world, was to say, hey, like there are some things you need to consider when you're talking to somebody about their life. Because I mean, if I deal with a lot, just me personally in my coaching, there's a lot of people that come from PTSD and trauma, mental health things. Like people are all encompassing of a human individual, right? So you're going to get all that stuff. But if I use certain language with somebody who comes from a trauma background, it can be very triggering, very hindering to their success, to their mental health, to their physical health, and can be damaging to relationships between them and their family members. And so it's very um, important that you yourself are holding yourself to a standard when you're dealing with people, just because they're humans, and also because the idea is that you want to help them and not just be like, oh, I'm providing a wow factor because I got this information.
How incredible that you're working on that. And I feel like it's almost, it's almost seems funny to think about trying to regulate something like this where it's so
Yeah.
intuitive and flowy, but to have it and have it done right and keep people safe, it's like a necessary part of it. And especially with the
Yeah.
world of social media, you see like well, this is so funny actually. So when I was going through a breakup, I was getting all of this TikTok. I was not seeking this out. It was based on like, the algorithms listening, whatever. All of a sudden,
Right.
I started getting all of these like TikTok mediums talking about like twin flames and this person's going to come back. I'm like, no, this was like an emotionally not beneficial relationship. I don't want to
Right.
the word abuse, but like it was not good.
Yeah.
So if I am not strong and not knowing and not doing the work and not going to therapy, that there's a time in my life for sure that would have been so appealing. Like, oh yeah,
Yes.
let me wait for this person to come back. Absolutely not. And so the TikTok thing, I'm like, that is, yes, there
Yeah.
needs to be some regulation because I think you could totally, you know, take advantage of vulnerable people, like, just feeding off that they're looking for help at like such a low point emotionally, or the loss of a loved one and saying, oh yeah, whether you did or not, like I connected with your mom, here's what she has to say. So okay, that's
Yes.
incredible, important work.
Yeah.
One question I have is, when you're working with people, it sounded like the more you work with a client, because you said you have to kind of cut their energy, so the
Mhm.
longer and more you work with a client, is it the kind of quicker and to even deeper level you're able to connect with them over time?
Yes. When I'm working with like sometimes people choose to want to check in once a month for a year or something, or every other week for 6 months or something. So the more that we develop this connection just energetically, and the more they're open to it, like it's a two-way, give and receive of energy, the the quickness and the ease of connecting with them to see what it is that they need to be guided in or what we need to work on, like, and that's why with this type of work we may say, okay, here's my outline of what this coaching program might entail. However, I'm now sitting in front of you today and we're not going there today. We're going here today. And the reason we're going here today is because, and they're like, because this is happening to me and this is what we need to be doing. And I was like, yes. So a lot of it can be, and that's good because we want to coach you through life. We don't want to coach you through an agenda. And so it's really good to be able to be flexible with that to be able to do it. So you do develop a stronger connection. You also can see where their gaps are, and you can see like, okay, every time they say a certain thing, their belief system is this, and so now we need to work on that, because is this belief system going to be beneficial to you as an individual soul, or is it going to be harmful to you as an individual soul? And so you start to just learn their language and understand their mindsets, and the way that they talk about themselves too is important. So there's a lot of different like multifaceted layers that are going on when you're connecting spiritually to somebody, and also just even understanding those things.
Well, I'm just thinking, what an incredible niche, because when I have the opportunity to work with a client for a year, I become just so intuitive with their needs, physiologically and mentally. What are your barriers to health and wellness? Okay, I see this trend, you're always doing this on the weekend, whatever this case. So that alone, right? You have that just innate coaching ability
Yeah.
that the more you work with someone, the more you really can, like you see those frameworks. So let alone to have this really, depthful, intuitive piece on that. What an incredible combination. And I could talk to you forever. So we'll start getting you out the door, but I would love to know, to wrap things up, if you could offer people like just one piece of general advice to step or lean into finding clarity in their life, because at the end of the day, that's really what you're allowing people to do. What would that be?
Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. This is something that is going to take you some courage. It's going to take you some thought to be intentional on taking that step. And don't be afraid of what you're going to lose. Be excited about what you're about to gain, because I guarantee the things that you're trying to hold on to are not the things that you are going to be aligning to. And that once you open that door and you really see who you truly are, all those other things are going to start to come to you. So it becomes less about fear of losing and just fear of, oh my God, why didn't I do this before?
Beautiful thing. And I think just too, that is like an incredible soundbite for anyone who's maybe been considering using a service like yours and has been afraid. Myself, I don't want to say I've been afraid, but I've been just like hesitant. And I think that's a
Yeah.
great, you'll gain something. You just don't know what it is yet. And we're always scared of the unknown, right? We stay in bad situations or crappy jobs that are making us sick simply because we know what it's like. So, okay, what an incredible note to end off on. And before you go, I have to do a quick little rapid fire question for you. So, the first being, who is your biggest role model?
Oprah Winfrey.
Oh, no hesitation. I love that.
That came out of left field. I was not expecting to say that.
Your intuition knew.
There we
Okay.
go. Yep.
What is the best advice you've ever received?
Someone is always listening.
Oh, best book or resource you'd recommend to people?
I didn't sign up for this. It's a book, Dr. Tracy Delwish. I would have to give you the name, but I didn't sign up for this.
Oh, I thought you were just giving me a little attitude, like, hey, I was not
No.
prepared for rapid fire questions. So I'm imagining that that is about like, I didn't sign up to have like intuitive intuition or
Actually, it's about relationships. I didn't sign up for this. If you've ever heard yourself go, okay, wait a minute, I didn't sign up for this. That's what she focuses on. And you know what? It took me like, I love it because it's just so real and true. It's like, oh my God, yeah, I didn't sign up for that either. But she comes at it with such a really human approach. Like, I really like
oh,
her.
awesome, great
Mhm.
recommendation. And personal mantra or words you live by.
Sorry, I'm saying it, but I'm like choking up because it makes me so emotional. But My mantra is I would rather live my life making a difference for other people than not having lived my life at all. Like I'd rather show up every day, put myself out there and be vulnerable than to do nothing and live a life otherwise.
Oh, how powerful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, I'm so grateful just for this conversation that you found this path and committed yourself to that. And I can only imagine your friends and family and clients as well. So thank you so much.
Oh,
And
thank
last but
you.
not least, oh no, thank you, really. And do you know what? The big takeaway for me today, there are many, but just based on how the trajectory of my day has been already, is just that someone's always listening and your body, alone is the one that's listening. Cause I was doing some negative self-talk
Yeah.
today. So a great reminder. And last but not least, for those who want to follow along, get to know you and what you've got going on, where can they find you?
So I'm on Instagram and Facebook. The handle is Amber Price Clarity Coach, and my website is clarityacademy.ca.
Perfect. Thank you so much. We'll link everything so everyone can find you. And truly, I can't thank you enough for being here
Oh,
and
thank
being
you. Thank you. You have such a beautiful energy. Thank you for holding space with me. And I really enjoyed this conversation. So thanks for letting me have it.
an incredible compliment. Thank you. We'll talk again soon.